a haunted alpha, a dead lover's ghost, and the one woman brave enough to walk into the fire. What happens when the living can't let go, and the dead won't leave? Lyra Vance sees ghosts. She survived her whole life watching shadows no one else believes in. But when she stumbles onto Cale Thornridge's cursed estate, she finds something worse than spirits. A man being slowly destroyed by the ghost of his mate. Seraphine died in flames. She never forgave him. And now she's come back to claim what's hers, even if it means burning everything down again. Stay until the end to see if love can survive death itself. Drop a like and tell us what city you're watching from. The forest didn't care that Lyra Vance was lost. It didn't care that her boots were caked in 3 inches of freezing mud, or that her lungs burned with every ragged breath. The trees just kept swallowing the moonlight, turning the world into a maze of black trunks and blacker shadows. She stopped, hands on her knees, gasping. God damn it! Her voice came out small, pathetic, the kind of sound that gets eaten by the dark and never comes back. Lyra straightened, wiping rain and sweat from her face. Her jacket was soaked through. Her phone was dead. And the last road she'd seen was 4 miles back, maybe 5. She'd lost count when panic set in. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be in Millbrook, knocking on her aunt's door, asking for a place to crash while she figured out what the hell to do with her life. That was the plan. Simple, clean. But the bus broke down. The driver told everyone to wait. And Lyra, always too restless, always too stubborn, decided to walk. Just follow the road, she muttered to herself now, mocking her own stupidity. It's only a few miles. What could go wrong? Everything could go wrong. The forest had no road anymore. Just mud and roots and fog so thick it moved like something alive. And the ghosts, God, the ghosts. Lyra saw them everywhere, always had. Since she was 5 years old and her mother died in a car crash right in front of her. Since she watched her mother's spirit climb out of the wreckage, look at Lyra with eyes that were already somewhere else, and walk into the light. After that, the dead never left her alone. Most people got 1 ghost. Maybe 2 in a lifetime. Lyra got dozens. She saw the old woman in the grocery store, still looking for her cat. The teenager at the bus stop, who'd overdosed 3 years ago and didn't realize he was gone. The child in the park, who just wanted someone to push her on the swing. She learned not to stare, not to acknowledge them. Because the living thought you were crazy, and the dead, well, they got clingy. But tonight, there were no ghosts. That was the first sign something was wrong. Lyra walked faster, her breath misting in the cold. The trees pressed closer. The silence was so thick it had weight, like the air before a scream. Then she heard it, a low, wet growl. She froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard it hurt. Slowly, she turned. Nothing. Just fog. Just trees. Just... The growl came again. Closer this time. Behind her. Lyra spun, stumbling backward. Her boot caught on a root and she went down hard, palms slamming into the mud. Pain shot up her wrists. Shit! Something moved in the fog, low to the ground, fast. Lyra scrambled back, her hand closing around a fallen branch. She swung it up like a weapon, her voice cracking. Stay back! The shape stopped, and then, out of the mist, a wolf pup trotted into view. Lyra blinked. It was small, maybe 6 months old. Its fur was dark gray, almost black. And its eyes, bright amber in the dim light, locked onto hers with an intelligence that made her stomach twist. You've got to be kidding me, she whispered. The pup tilted its head. Then it lunged. Lyra yelped and rolled to the side, but the pup wasn't going for her. It grabbed her bag, her only bag, with her wallet, her charger, the last photo of her mom, and bolted into the trees. No, hey! Lyra was on her feet before she could think, sprinting after the little thief. Branches whipped her face, mud sucked at her boots, but she didn't stop. Get back here, you little... The pup darted left, then right, weaving through the trees like it knew exactly where it was going. And then the forest opened up. Lyra skidded to a stop, chest heaving. In front of her stood a gate, iron, 15 feet tall, twisted into shapes that looked like wolves mid-leap, their mouths open in silent howls. Rust bled down the bars like old blood. Beyond it, barely visible through the fog, was a mansion. No, not a mansion, a ruin. The house was massive, 3 stories of stone and shattered windows, its roof sagging in places like broken ribs. Vines choked the walls. The front steps were cracked and littered with leaves. And every window, every single one, was dark. The pup sat in front of the gate, Lyra's bag at its feet, staring at her. "You've got to be kidding me," Lyra said again, quieter this time. The pup yipped once, then slipped through the bars and trotted toward the house. Lyra stared at the gate. Every instinct she had screamed at her to turn around, to walk back into the forest, to take her chances with the mud and the dark, and whatever the hell was growling out there. But her bag was on the other side of that gate, and she was cold and wet and so tired. Screw it, she climbed. The iron was slick with rain, and her hand slipped twice, but she made it over. She dropped to the other side, grabbed her bag, and looked up at the house. It looked worse up close. The windows weren't just dark. They were watching. The door was cracked open, hanging crooked on its hinges. And the air smelled wrong, like smoke and rot and something sweet underneath it all. Lyra took a step back. "This is a bad idea," she told herself. The pup barked from the doorway. Lyra glared at it. "I'm not going in there." The pup barked again, then disappeared inside. Unbelievable. She stood there for a full 30 seconds, arguing with herself. Then thunder cracked overhead, the sky opened up, and rain came down in sheets. Lyra ran for the door. Inside, the house was silent. No, not silent. Breathing. Lyra stopped just past the threshold, water dripping from her hair. The door swung shut behind her with a groan that made her jump. The entrance hall stretched out in front of her, wide and cold. A staircase spiraled up into darkness. The floor was marble, cracked and stained. And hanging on the walls were portraits, dozens of them. Men and women with hard eyes and sharp faces, all of them staring down at her like she didn't belong. She didn't. "Hello?" Her voice echoed. No answer. Lyra took a step forward, then another. Her boots squeaked on the wet stone. "I don't want any trouble," she called out, louder this time. "I just need to wait out the storm. I'll leave in the morning, I swear." Still nothing. She moved deeper into the house, following the faint sound of the pup's claws on stone. The hallway branched off in 3 directions. She picked the middle one because it felt less like a trap, and found herself in what used to be a sitting room. Furniture covered in dust sheets, a fireplace choked with ash, and in the corner, curled up on a moth-eaten rug, was the pup. It looked up at her, tail wagging. "You're a menace," Lyra muttered. The pup yawned. She dropped her bag and pulled off her soaked jacket, hanging it over the back of a chair. Her shirt was damp, but not ruined. She sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall, and closed her eyes. Just for a minute. Just to breathe. That's when she felt it. The cold. Not the normal cold of a drafty house. This was different. Deliberate. Like ice sliding down her spine. Lyra opened her eyes and saw her. The ghost stood in the doorway. She was beautiful. Long dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. Pale skin. A dress that looked like it belonged in a painting. Silk and lace, the color of blood. And her eyes. God. Her eyes. They burned with something Lyra couldn't name. Rage. Grief. Hunger. The ghost didn't move. She just stared. And then she smiled. Lyra's breath caught. "Who? Get out!" The voice came from behind her. Lyra twisted around, her heart in her throat. A man stood in the other doorway. Tall. Broad-shouldered. His face was all hard angles and shadows, his jaw tight, his eyes the color of winter steel. He wore a shirt that looked like he'd been wearing it for 3 days, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms covered in scars. His hair was dark, messy, like he'd been running his hands through it too many times. And he looked at Lyra like she was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. "I said get out," he repeated, his voice low and rough. Lyra stood, hands up. "I didn't mean to. I don't care what you meant. You're trespassing. The storm. Not my problem. I'll leave in the morning." "You'll leave now." Lyra's temper flared. She was cold, wet, exhausted, and she'd been chased through the woods by God knows what. She wasn't in the mood to be thrown out into the rain by some brooding stranger. "Look," she said, keeping her voice steady, "I don't want to be here any more than you want me here. But I can't leave. Not tonight. So how about you go back to whatever dark corner you crawled out of, and I'll stay here, out of your way, until morning." The man's eyes narrowed. For a second, Lyra thought he was going to grab her and throw her out himself. But then the pup barked. The man looked down. The pup sat at his feet, tail wagging, looking up at him like he'd just done something wonderful. The man's jaw tightened. "Finn," he said quietly. "What did you do?" The pup yipped. The man closed his eyes, exhaling through his nose. When he opened them again, he looked at Lyra, really looked at her. And something in his expression shifted, not softened, but hesitated. "One night," he said finally. "Thank you," Lyra said, meaning it. "Don't thank me, don't talk to me, don't touch anything, and stay out of the East Wing." "Got it." He turned to leave. "Wait," Lyra said. He stopped, but didn't look back. "What's your name?" Silence. Then, so quiet she almost didn't hear it. "KL." He walked away, the pup trotting after him. Lyra stood alone in the sitting room, her pulse still racing. She looked back at the doorway where the ghost had been. Empty. But the cold was still there, and so was the smell of smoke. Lyra didn't sleep. She tried. She curled up on the floor, using her jacket as a pillow, and closed her eyes. But every time she started to drift, she heard something. Footsteps. Whispers. The creak of wood settling in ways wood shouldn't settle, and the cold never left. By the time pale light started creeping through the broken shutters, Lyra was exhausted and wired at the same time, her nerves stretched thin. She sat up, rubbing her face. The house looked worse in the daylight. The wallpaper was peeling, the floorboards were warped, and there were stains on the walls, dark, uneven patches that could have been water damage or something else entirely. Lyra stood, stretching the stiffness out of her back. She needed to find a bathroom. Maybe some water. And then she needed to leave. She stepped into the hallway and froze. There were children, 3 of them, standing at the end of the hall, staring at her. The oldest was maybe 12, a girl with tangled blonde hair and eyes that were too old for her face. Next to her stood a boy, maybe 10, dark-haired and scowling. And the youngest was a girl, no more than 6, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. None of them moved, none of them blinked. Lyra's stomach twisted. "Hi," she said, carefully. The oldest girl tilted her head. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "I know," Lyra said. "I'm leaving soon. He doesn't like strangers." "I noticed." The boy stepped forward. "You saw her, didn't you?" Lyra's breath hitched. "Who?" "The lady in the red dress." The youngest girl nodded, hugging her rabbit tighter. "She doesn't like you." Lyra's pulse kicked up. "What are you talking about?" The oldest girl smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "You'll see." Then they turned and walked away, single file, disappearing around the corner. Lyra stood there, heart pounding. What the hell was this place? She found the bathroom, barely. The pipes groaned when she turned on the faucet, and the water came out rust-colored, but it was cold and wet, and she splashed it on her face until her hand stopped shaking. When she came back out, Kael was waiting. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her with that same hard expression from last night. "You're still here," he said. "Good morning to you, too." His jaw tightened. "It's morning. Leave." "I'm going," Lyra said. "But first I need to know, who are those kids?" "Not your concern." "They said—" "I don't care what they said." Kael pushed off the wall, stepping closer. He was taller than she'd realized, bigger. And when he moved, it was with the kind of controlled violence that made her instincts scream danger. But Lyra didn't back down. "They're not normal," she said quietly. Kael's eyes flashed. "Get out." "I'm trying to help." "I don't need your help." "Yeah, because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who's drowning." The words hung in the air. Kael stared at her, something dark and broken flickering behind his eyes. Then he turned and walked away. "East gate's open," he called over his shoulder. "Use it." Lyra watched him go, her hands curling into fists. She should leave. She should walk out that gate and never look back. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the kids. Maybe it was the ghost. Maybe it was the way Kael looked at her, like he wanted her gone but couldn't quite make himself force her out. Or maybe it was the fact that, for the first time in years, Lyra felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She walked to the front door, opened it, and stopped. Outside, the world was gone. Not literally. The trees were still there, the gate, the gravel drive, but the fog was back, thicker than before. And in the fog, shapes moved. Lyra's breath caught. They weren't ghosts. They were wolves, dozens of them, circling the house. Their eyes glowed in the mist, yellow, feral, wrong. And standing at the front of the pack, staring directly at her, was the biggest wolf she'd ever seen. Its fur was black as oil. Its teeth were bared. And when it growled, the sound rattled her ribs. Lyra slammed the door shut. Her heart hammered. She turned. And Kael was there. "I told you to leave," he said quietly. "There are wolves." "I know." I know." Lyra stared at him. "What the hell is going on?" Kael looked at her for a long moment. Then he said very softly, "You should have run when you had the chance." The lights went out, and in the darkness, Lyra heard the ghost laugh. The darkness wasn't empty. Lyra felt it immediately, the way the air thickened, pressing against her skin like cold hands. Her breath came shallow and fast, her eyes straining against the black. "Kael?" No answer. She reached out, fingers brushing the wall. The wallpaper felt wrong under her palm. Wet, sticky. She jerked her hand back. "Kael, what's happening?" A match flared. Kael stood 3 feet away, his face half lit by the small flame. The shadows carved him into something harder, colder. His eyes didn't leave hers as he touched the match to an old oil lamp on the hall table. Warm light bloomed, pushing back the dark just enough to see. "The generator's out," he said. "That's not what I'm asking." "I know what you're asking. Then answer me." Kael set the lamp down. "You want answers? Fine. The wolves outside? They're part of my pack. The kids you met? They're under my protection. This house? It's cursed, and you—" He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You just made the worst mistake of your life by not leaving when I told you to." Lyra's jaw tightened. "I tried. In case you didn't notice, your pack decided to throw a welcoming party. They're not welcoming you, they're keeping you in." "Why?" "Because she wants you here." The temperature dropped. Lyra's breath misted. She looked past Kael toward the end of the hallway where the shadows pooled thicker. The ghost stood there. Seraphine. She was clearer now in the lamplight, beautiful and terrible, her red dress moving in a wind that didn't exist. Her eyes locked onto Lyra with an intensity that made her chest ache. "Who is she?" Lyra whispered. "My mate," Kael said flatly. "Was. She was my mate. She's dead." "I know." "Then why?" "Because I can't let her go." His voice cracked on the last word, just barely. "And she won't let me." Seraphine smiled. Then she was gone. The cold lifted, the shadows receded, but the weight in the air didn't change. Kael picked up the lamp. "Follow me. We need to talk." He didn't wait for her to agree. He just walked, and after a heartbeat of hesitation, Lyra followed. Malt Makits. The kitchen was the only room that felt remotely lived in. It was large, stone-floored, with a massive table scarred from years of use. Copper pots hung from hooks above an old cast-iron stove. A fire burned low in the hearth, casting flickering light across the walls. The 3 children sat at the table. They looked up when Kael entered, their expressions unreadable. "Upstairs," Kael said. The oldest girl, Lyra still didn't know her name, stood without a word. The others followed. They filed past Lyra, silent as ghosts, and disappeared up a narrow back staircase. Kael set the lamp on the table and gestured to a chair. "Sit." Lyra didn't move. "I don't take orders well." "I noticed." "So maybe you should try asking." Kael's eyes narrowed. For a second, she thought he was going to argue. Then he exhaled, slow and deliberate, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. "Please," he said. The words sounded like it cost him. "Sit." Lyra sat. Kael poured 2 cups of something dark from a kettle on the stove. He set one in front of her. "What is it?" she asked. "Coffee, terrible coffee, but it's hot. She wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. She didn't drink. Kyle sat across from her, his own cup untouched. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lyra said, "Tell me." "Tell you what?" "Everything." Kyle's jaw worked. He stared at his coffee like it might give him an answer. "You don't want to know," he said finally. "I'm still here, aren't I?" "That's the problem." "Then make me understand why." Kyle looked up. His eyes were brutal in their honesty, tired, haunted, and so full of pain it made Lyra's chest tight. "Because everyone who stays dies," he said. The words landed like a blow. Lyra swallowed. "The kids are dying too, slowly, but I can't stop it." "What do you mean?" Kale leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "This place is poison. The house, the land, all of it. It's been rotting for years. And Seraphine, she's the rot. She's in the walls, in the air, in my goddamn head. She won't leave. And every day she stays, the house gets worse. The kids get worse. I get worse. Why don't you just leave? You think I haven't tried?" His voice rose, sharp and bitter. "I've left 10 times. 20. Doesn't matter. She pulls me back every time. And the kids, they can't leave. They're bound here. Same as me." "Bound how?" Kale's expression shuddered. "That's not a story you're ready for. Try me." "No." "Kyle, ye kill." I said no. He stood, the chair scraping loud against the stone. "You want to survive the night? Fine. Stay in the kitchen. Don't go upstairs. Don't go to the east wing. And whatever you do, don't talk to her." "To who? Seraphine?" "She's not Seraphine anymore. She's what's left. And what's left is hungry." Lyra stood too, her temper flaring. "You can't just dump all this on me and then walk away. I deserve—" "You don't deserve anything." Kyle stepped closer, his presence filling the space between them. He was tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You walked into something you don't understand, something I've been fighting for 5 years. You think you can fix it? You think you can help?" He laughed, the sound hollow. "You can't even see what's happening right in front of you. Then show me. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need your protection." "Yes," Kale said softly, dangerously, "you do." Lyra's pulse kicked. She should back down, should step away. But she didn't. "You don't get to make that choice for me," she said. Kale stared at her. Something shifted in his expression, frustration bleeding into something else, something darker. "You're not leaving, are you?" he said. "No. Even if I tell you to." "Especially then." His jaw tightened. "You're either brave or stupid. Probably both." For the first time, something that might have been a smile ghosted across his face. It was gone before she could be sure. "Fine," he said. "Stay, but don't say I didn't warn you." He turned and walked toward the door. "Kyle." He stopped, but didn't turn. "What happened to her?" Lyra asked quietly. "To Seraphine." Silence stretched. Then, so low she almost didn't hear it, "I killed her." He left. And Lyra stood alone in the kitchen, the fire crackling, the ghost's laughter echoing somewhere in the walls. She didn't stay in the kitchen. Of course she didn't. Lyra gave it 20 minutes, long enough for Kyle's footsteps to fade, long enough for the house to settle back into its eerie quiet. Then she picked up the lamp and slipped into the hallway. She needed to understand this place, needed to see what Kyle was hiding. The house stretched out in all directions, a labyrinth of corridors and closed doors. Most of the rooms were empty, furniture covered in sheets, floors thick with dust. But some rooms felt different, used, lived in. She found the children's rooms on the second floor, 3 small bedrooms side by side. The doors were open just enough to see inside. Beds with mismatched blankets, toys scattered on the floor, drawings pinned to the walls, wolves and forests and a woman in a red dress. Lyra's stomach twisted. She kept moving. The east wing was at the far end of the second floor, blocked off by a heavy wooden door. A chain hung across it, padlocked shut. "Don't go to the east wing." Lyra stared at the door. She should turn back, she knew that. But her hand was already reaching for the chain. It was cold, colder than it should have been. And when she touched it, she felt it. Grief. Not hers. Someone else's. A wave of it so strong it made her knees weak. She yanked her hand back, gasping, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Lyra spun. The oldest girl stood at the top of the stairs, watching her. In the lamplight, she looked even older than 12. Her face was too pale, her eyes too knowing. "What's your name?" Lyra asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Clara?" "Clara, why can't I go in there?" "Because that's where she died." Lyra's breath caught. "Seraphine." Clara nodded. "The fire started in there. Kyle tried to save her, but she didn't want to be saved." "What do you mean?" Claire's expression didn't change. "She wanted to burn, and she wanted him to burn with her. When he didn't, she made him promise to stay, forever. And he did. That's not possible." "You've seen her," Clara said. "You know it is." Lyra's pulse hammered. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're going to try to help him." Clara stepped closer. "They all do. The ones who see her. They think they can fix him, save him. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." "He does want to be saved." "No," Clara said quietly. "He wants to be punished, and she's more than happy to oblige." Before Lyra could respond, a crash echoed from below. Both of them froze. Another crash, glass shattering, then a scream, high, sharp, terrified. It was one of the younger children. Clara bolted for the stairs. Lyra followed, her heart in her throat. They reached the kitchen just as Kyle did. The boy, the dark-haired one, stood in the center of the room, blood dripping from his hand. Broken glass littered the floor around him. And on the wall behind him, written in something dark and wet, were 3 words: "She doesn't belong." Kyle's face went white. "Get upstairs," he said to Clara. "But now." Clara grabbed the boy and the youngest girl, who was crying into her rabbit, and pulled them toward the back stairs. They disappeared. Kyle turned to Lyra. "I told you to stay in the kitchen. I don't care what you were doing." His voice was low, controlled, but there was a tremor in it, rage barely leashed. "She knows you're here, and now she's making her position clear." Lyra looked at the words on the wall. "What does she want? For you to leave?" "And if I don't?" Kyle's eyes burned. "Then she'll make you." "How?" He didn't answer. Instead, he crossed to the sink, grabbed a rag, and started wiping the wall. The letters smeared but didn't disappear. The stain was too deep. Lyra stepped closer. "Kyle, don't. You need help. I need you to stay out of this." "I can't." "Why?" He spun on her, the rag clenched in his fist. "Why the hell can't you just do what I ask? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. So why are you still here?" Lyra met his eyes. "Because I see her, and I see you, and I know what it's like to be haunted by something you can't escape." Kyle stared at her. The silence stretched. Then, very quietly, he said, "You can't save me." "Maybe not," Lyra said, "but I can stay." Something broke in his expression. Just for a second, a crack in the armor. Then he turned away. "Do what you want," he said, "but don't blame me when it goes wrong." He walked out. Lyra stood in the kitchen, surrounded by broken glass and blood and words written by a ghost. And for the first time since she'd walked through that gate, she wondered if Kyle was right. Maybe she should have run. The next 2 days were a slow descent into madness. Lyra tried to help. She cleaned the kitchen. She talked to the kids, or tried to. Clara was guarded. The boy, whose name was Matthias, didn't speak at all. And the youngest, Elise, only whispered to her rabbit. Kyle avoided her. He moved through the house like a ghost himself, checking the windows, the doors, the wards he'd carved into the door frames. She caught glimpses of him, repairing a broken shutter, hauling firewood, standing in the yard with the wolves circling him like they were waiting for orders. When she tried to talk to him, he shut her down. "You need to eat." "I'm fine." "You're not fine." "Lyra." He didn't look at her. "Stop." "Stop what?" "Caring." "Too late." He walked away. Every night the cold got worse. Lyra felt it creeping through the house like a living thing. Doors slammed on their own. Footsteps echoed in empty rooms, and every time she turned around, she swore she saw her, Seraphine, standing just out of reach, watching. On the third night, Lyra woke to the smell of smoke. She bolted upright, her heart racing. The room was dark, no fire, no flames, but the smell was everywhere. She grabbed the lamp and stumbled into the hallway. "Kael!" No answer. The smoke smell grew stronger. It clawed at her throat, thick and acrid. She ran down the stairs into the main hall and stopped. Seraphine stood at the top of the grand staircase. She was burning. Flames licked up her dress, her hair, her skin. But she didn't scream. She didn't move. She just smiled. And then she pointed. Lyra turned. Kael stood at the other end of the hall, his back to her. He was talking to someone she couldn't see. No, not talking, arguing. "I can't," he said, his voice raw. "Not again." A pause. "You don't understand. She's not like the others." Another pause. "She sees you. She knows. And if I don't—" He stopped, turned, and saw Lyra. His face went ashen. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." Lyra's voice shook. "Who were you talking to?" Kael's jaw worked. "Go back to bed." "Who were you talking to, Kael?" "Go back to bed." "No." He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, grabbing her by the shoulders. His grip was hard enough to bruise. "You don't want this answer," he said. "Tell me anyway." His eyes searched hers, and in that moment she saw it, the thing he'd been hiding. He wasn't just haunted. He was possessed. "She's in my head," he whispered. "Every second, every thought. She tells me things, makes me see things, and I—" His voice broke. "I can't fight her anymore." Lyra's breath hitched. "Kael, she wants me to hurt you." His hands trembled. "She's telling me to do it right now. And the worst part?" He laughed, the sound jagged. "Part of me wants to listen." Lyra should have been terrified. She should have run, but she didn't. Instead, she reached up, her hands covering his. "Then fight her," she said. "I can't." "Yes, you can." "You don't—" "I said fight her." Kael stared at her, and then, slowly, his grip loosened. He stepped back, his hands falling to his sides. "You're going to get yourself killed," he said. "Probably." "And you're okay with that?" "No," Lyra said, "but I'm not leaving you to do this alone." Something flickered in his eyes. Gratitude, hope, fear. Then it was gone. "You should," he said quietly. He walked past her, up the stairs, and disappeared into the darkness. Lyra stood in the hall, her pulse thundering. Behind her, the smell of smoke faded, but the laughter remained. The next morning, everything changed. Lyra woke to shouting. She stumbled downstairs to find Kael and Clara in the kitchen, their voices raised. "You can't keep doing this," Clara said. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright with tears. "She's going to die, Kael. Just like the others." "She's not—" "Yes, she is." Clara slammed her hand on the table. "And you know it. You let them in, you let them get close, and then she takes them. Every single time." Kael's jaw tightened. "This is different." "How? How is this different?" "Because she's—" He stopped, his gaze cutting to Lyra. She stood in the doorway, frozen. Clara saw her and laughed bitterly. "Oh, perfect. Tell her, Kael. Tell her what happens to the people who try to help you." "Clara!" "They die," Clara said, her voice shaking. "Every single one. My mother, my father, the woman before that, and the one before her. Seraphine doesn't just hate them, she destroys them. And you let her." "That's enough," Kael said. "No, it's not." Clara turned to Lyra. "You think you're special? You're not. You're just the next name on a very long list." "Clara, stop." "Why? So you can lie to her too? So you can pretend she's got a chance?" "She does." "She doesn't!" Clara's voice cracked. "And the sooner she realizes that, the sooner she can leave before Seraphine burns her alive." Silence fell. Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. "Is that true?" she asked quietly. Kael didn't answer. "Kael, is it true?" He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the answer. "Yes." Lyra's stomach dropped. "How many?" she whispered. "It doesn't matter." "How many, Kael?" His jaw clenched. 6. The number hit her like a punch. 6 people have died trying to help you? They didn't die because of me. Didn't they? Cale flinched. Clara grabbed her coat. I'm taking Matthias and Elise to the old barn. At least there, Seraphine can't reach them. Clara, wait! But she was already gone, the back door slamming behind her. Lyra stared at Kyle. You should have told me, she said. Would it have changed anything? Yes. Liar. Lyra's temper flared. You don't get to decide what I would or wouldn't have done. That's not your call. You're right, Kyle said. His voice was cold now, distant. It's not. So let me make it easy for you. Leave, right now, before she decides you're worth killing. I'm not leaving. Yes, you are. You can't make me. Watch me. He grabbed her arm and hauled her toward the door. Lyra struggled, her pulse spiking. Kyle, stop. No. His grip was iron. I'm done watching people die because of me. You're leaving. Now. He threw open the front door and stopped. The wolves were gone. The fog was gone. And standing in the middle of the drive, bathed in pale sunlight, was Seraphine. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was solid, real. Her dress didn't move in phantom wind. It hung still, stained with ash and blood. Her skin was pale as bone, and her eyes, God, her eyes were black from corner to corner. She smiled. Hello, my love, she said to Kyle. Her voice was wrong, layered, like 1,000 voices speaking at once. Kyle's hand fell from Lyra's arm. Seraphine, he breathed. You've been avoiding me, Seraphine said. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the gravel. That hurts, Kale. After everything I've done for you, after everything we've been through. You're dead, Kyle said. Am I? She laughed. I don't feel dead. Do I look dead to you? She reached out. Kale didn't move. Her fingers brushed his cheek, and where she touched him, frost spread across his skin. You brought her here, Seraphine said softly. This little mortal, this nothing, you let her into our home. It's not our home anymore. Isn't it? Seraphine's smile widened. You're still here. I'm still here. The children are still here. That sounds like home to me. The children aren't yours, Kyle said. They're ours, Seraphine corrected. We made them a family. We gave them a place to belong. And now you want to throw that away? For her? Her gaze slid to Lyra, and Lyra felt it like a blade. She can't give you what I can, Seraphine said. She can't understand you, can't love you, not the way I do. Your love is poison, Kale said. So is yours. Seraphine's hand moved to his throat, her fingers curling around it, not choking, just holding. We were always meant to burn together, Kale. You know that. You've always known. I'm not doing this again. You don't have a choice. And then she kissed him. Lyra's chest tightened. Kale didn't pull away. He stood there, frozen, as Seraphine's lips moved against his. Frost spread from her touch, crawling across his jaw, his neck, his chest. And when she finally stepped back, Kale's eyes were empty. Come inside, my love, Seraphine said. We have so much to talk about. She walked past him, through the door, into the house. Kyle followed, like a puppet on strings. Lyra stood on the steps, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. And from inside the house, she heard Seraphine's voice. Close the door, Kyle. We don't want her following us. The door slammed shut. Lyra lunged for the handle, locked. She pounded on the wood. Kyle, Kyle! No answer. She ran to the windows, tried the side door, the back entrance, all locked. And in every window, Seraphine stood watching, her black eyes gleaming, smiling. Lyra's hand shook. She was alone. Kyle was gone. And the house, the cursed, rotting house, had just claimed him, unless she could find another way in. Lyra's hands were still shaking when she stepped back from the door. Her pulse hammered in her ears, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get as far from this cursed place as possible. But Kyle was in there, and she'd already made her choice. She circled the house, testing every window, every door, all locked, all watching. Seraphine's face appeared in the glass wherever she went, that terrible smile never wavering, By the time Lara reached the back of the mansion, her knuckles were bloody from pounding on wood and glass. She leaned against the stone wall, chest heaving, trying to think. There had to be another way. Her eyes caught on something she'd missed before. A cellar door, half buried under dead leaves and vines. The wood was rotted, the hinges rusted. And it wasn't locked. Lyra dropped to her knees and pulled. The door resisted, then gave with a groan that sounded too much like a scream. Darkness yawned below, smelling of earth and rot and something older. She didn't hesitate. She dropped into the dark. The fall was shorter than she expected. Her boots hit packed dirt, her knees buckling. Pain shot up her shins, but she pushed through it, straightening. The cellar was vast. Stone pillars held up the sagging ceiling. Barrels lined the walls, their wood cracked and weeping something dark. And at the far end, barely visible in the sliver of daylight from above, was a staircase leading up. Lyra moved toward it. Her foot hit something soft. She looked down. A body. No, not a body. A skeleton. Still wearing the remnants of a dress, the fabric rotted to nothing. And next to it, another. And another. 6. Lyra's stomach turned. The ones who came before. The ones who tried to help. They'd never left. She forced herself to keep moving, stepping carefully around the bones. When she reached the stairs, she climbed them 2 at a time, her hands pressing against the damp stone walls. The door at the top opened into a narrow hallway she didn't recognize. The walls here were bare stone, no wallpaper, no portraits. This was the bones of the house, the parts no one was meant to see. Voices drifted from somewhere ahead. Lyra followed them. They led her to a door cracked open just enough to see through. Inside was a bedroom, not destroyed like the others. This one was pristine, a massive 4-poster bed with black silk sheets, a vanity covered in perfume bottles and jewelry. And standing in the center of it all was Seraphine. Kale knelt at her feet. Lyra's breath caught. He wasn't restrained, wasn't bleeding. But his eyes, God, his eyes were empty, like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything that made him human. "Do you remember this room?" Seraphine asked, running her fingers through his hair. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "This is where we started, where you promised me forever." Kale didn't answer. "Say it," Seraphine said. "Say you remember." "I remember." His voice was flat, mechanical. "Good." She smiled, leaning down to kiss his forehead. Frost spread where her lips touched. "Then you remember what comes next." Lyra pushed the door open. Both of them turned. Seraphine's smile widened. "There she is, the little hero." Lyra ignored her, focusing on Kael. "Get up!" He didn't move. "Kael, get up." "He can't hear you," Seraphine said. "Not really. He's mine now. He's always been mine." "Let him go." "Why would I do that?" "Because he doesn't love you anymore." Seraphine's expression darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Lyra stepped closer. "You died 5 years ago. He tried to save you, but you chose the fire. You chose to burn, and now you're punishing him for surviving." "I'm not punishing him." Seraphine's voice turned sharp. "I'm keeping him. There's a difference." "Is there? You think you know him?" Seraphine laughed. "You've been here 3 days. I was with him for 10 years. I know every scar on his body, every nightmare, every sin." She crouched beside Kael, her hand on his shoulder. "Tell her, my love. Tell her what you did." Kael's jaw tightened. "Tell her," Seraphine repeated. "I killed you," Kael said quietly. Lyra's chest tightened. "No, you said, I lied." His voice was still flat, but there was something underneath it now, something raw. "The fire wasn't an accident. I started it. I trapped her inside, and I listened to her scream." The words hung in the air like poison. Lyra stared at him. "Why?" "Because she was going to kill the children," Kael said. "She found out they weren't hers, that I'd taken them from another pack, and she—" His voice cracked. "She couldn't forgive that. So she decided if she couldn't have them, no one could." Seraphine's smile was brittle. "You always tell it wrong." "I tell it how it happened." "No." Her hand tightened on his shoulder, her nails digging in. You tell it like you're the victim, like you had no choice. But you did, Kael. You could have chosen me. You could have sent the children away, but you didn't. You chose them over me. They were children, Kael said. And I was your mate. Seraphine's voice rose, echoing off the walls. I gave you everything, my pack, my loyalty, my body, and you threw it away for 3 broken strays who weren't even yours. They needed me. I needed you. The room shook. Cracks spiderwebbed across the ceiling. Dust rained down. And Seraphine stood, her form flickering between solid and smoke. You made me this, she hissed. You turned me into a monster, and now you get to live with it. Forever. Lyra's hands curled into fists. He doesn't have to. Seraphine's black eyes snapped to her. Excuse me? He doesn't have to live with it. He doesn't have to stay here, and neither do the children. You think you can take them? Seraphine laughed. You think you have that power? I think you're scared, Lyra said. The laughter stopped. Scared of what? Of losing him. Lyra stepped closer. You keep him here because you know if he leaves, you disappear. You're not real anymore, Seraphine. You're just an echo. And the only thing keeping you alive is his guilt. Seraphine's face twisted. You don't know anything. I know enough. Lyra looked at Kael. And I know he's done paying for your death. He'll never be done, Seraphine said. Because he loved it. Lyra froze. What? Didn't he tell you? Seraphine crouched again, her hand sliding to Kael's throat. When he set the fire, when he locked the door, when he heard me screaming, he smiled. Lyra's stomach dropped. She looked at Kael. He didn't deny it. It's true, he said quietly. I was relieved. For 5 seconds before the guilt hit, I was relieved she was gone, and she felt it. That's why she came back, not because I killed her, but because part of me was glad I did. The confession landed like a blow. Seraphine's smile returned triumphant. You see, he's not the man you think he is. He's broken, rotten, just like me. Lyra's hand shook. No. Yes. No. Lyra met Kael's eyes. You're not rotten. You made a choice. A terrible choice. But it doesn't define you. It does, Kael said. It always will. Only if you let it. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Lyra's voice hardened. You're a coward. Kael flinched. You could fight her, Lyra continued. You could leave. But you won't. Because staying here, being punished, being controlled, it's easier than forgiving yourself. That's not, isn't it? Lyra stepped closer, her eyes burning. You're so wrapped up in your guilt, you can't see what's right in front of you. Those kids need you. Not the broken version of you, the real you. And you're too busy drowning to save them. I tried. You gave up. The words came out sharp, cutting. You gave up the second she came back. And now you're letting her use you like a puppet because it's easier than admitting you want to live. Seraphine's expression darkened. Enough. I'm not done. Yes, Seraphine said, her voice dropping to something inhuman. You are. She moved. 1 second she was beside Kael. The next she was in front of Lyra, her hand wrapped around Lyra's throat. The cold was instant, brutal. It burned like fire and froze like ice at the same time. Lyra gasped, clawing at Seraphine's wrist. But there was nothing to grab, just smoke and shadow and freezing air. You think you can save him? Seraphine whispered, her face inches from Lyra's. You think you're special? You're nothing, just another body for the cellar. Lyra's vision blurred, her lungs screamed. And then Kael was there. He grabbed Seraphine's arm and pulled. Let her go. Seraphine turned, her grip loosening just enough for Lyra to suck in a breath. You're choosing her? Seraphine's voice trembled. After everything I've done? After everything we've been through? Let her go. No. Seraphine, I won't lose you again. The words tore out of her, raw and broken. I won't go back to the dark. Not alone. Never alone. Her form flickered. For a second, Lyra saw her, not the monster, but the woman, beautiful and terrified and so desperately sad. Please, Seraphine whispered, don't leave me. Kael's expression cracked. "I'm sorry," he said, and then he ripped her hand away. Seraphine screamed. The sound was inhuman. It shattered the windows, the walls cracked, and the cold, the unbearable cold, exploded through the room. Lyra hit the floor, gasping. Kael staggered back, his hands over his ears. And Seraphine stood in the center of it all, her form unraveling, smoke and shadow peeling away to reveal something underneath, something ancient and angry and hungry. "You chose wrong," she said. Her voice wasn't layered anymore. It was singular, focused, and it was full of rage. "If I can't have you," Seraphine said, "no one will." The room ignited, not with real fire, with ghost fire, blue and white and cold as death. It spread across the walls, the ceiling, the floor, and everywhere it touched, frost followed. Kael grabbed Lyra and hauled her to her feet. "Run!" They ran, through the hallway, down the stairs. The house shook around them, plaster raining down, beams groaning. Seraphine's laughter chased them, echoing from every corner. "You can't escape," she screamed. "This house is mine. You're mine." They burst into the main hall. Claire stood at the bottom of the stairs, Matthias and Elise behind her. "What did you do?" Claire shouted. "No time," Kael said. "We have to get them out." "The doors?" "I know." He ran to the front door, slamming his shoulder into it. Once, twice. It didn't budge. Lyra grabbed a chair and hurled it at the nearest window. The glass exploded outward. She started knocking out the remaining shards, her hands bleeding. "Come on!" Clara pushed the children toward the window. Matthias went first, scrambling through. Then Elise, still clutching her rabbit. Clara turned back to Kael. "What about you?" "I'll hold her off." "No," Lyra said. "Lyra." "No." She grabbed his arm. "You're coming with us." "I can't." "Yes, you can." "She won't let me leave," Kael said. His voice was calm, too calm. "She's bound to me. If I go, she follows. And if she follows, she'll kill everyone I care about. The only way to stop her is to stay." "That's not true." "It is." He looked at her, his eyes clear for the first time since Seraphine kissed him. "And we both know it." Lyra's throat tightened. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." "Kael, go." He pushed her toward the window. "Take the kids. Get as far from here as you can." "I'm not leaving you." "You have to." "No." "Lyra." His hands cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "I'm already gone. I've been gone for 5 years, but you can still save them, please." Tears burned her eyes. "You're a coward." He smiled. It was small and sad and utterly broken. "I know." He kissed her. It was brief, desperate, and it tasted like goodbye. Then he shoved her through the window. Lyra hit the ground outside. The breath knocked from her lungs. Clara pulled her up, dragging her away from the house. "No!" Lyra fought her. "We have to go back." "It's too late," Clara said. Inside, Kael stood in the center of the hall. Seraphine appeared in front of him, her form solidifying. She reached for him, her hands gentle. "Finally," she whispered, "you're mine again." Kael didn't fight. He just closed his eyes, and the house collapsed. Not physically, but the ward shattered, the walls groaned, and something dark and ancient rose from the foundations, wrapping around Kael like chains. Lyra screamed, but Clara held her back, her grip iron. "We have to go," Clara said. "Now!" They ran. Through the gate, into the forest. The wolves didn't follow. The fog didn't chase them. And when Lyra finally looked back, the mansion was dark, silent, dead. Kael was gone. They made it to the barn before dawn. It was small, drafty, but it was safe. The children huddled together in the corner, wrapped in old blankets Clara had hidden there. Lyra sat by the door, staring out at the trees. Clara sat beside her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Clara said, "He knew." Lyra looked at her. "He knew she'd take him," Clara continued. "That's why he kept pushing you away. He didn't want you to see it." "See what?" "Him giving up." Lyra's hands curled into fists. "He didn't give up, didn't he? He saved you, all of you. For now." Claire's voice was bitter. "But it won't last. It never does." She'll come for us eventually. She always does. Not if I stop her, Clara laughed, the sound hollow. You can't stop her. No one can. She's not just a ghost, Lyra. She's the house, the land, the pack. She's everything Kyle ever loved, twisted into something that can't love him back. And now that she has him again, she won't let go. Not until there's nothing left. Lyra's jaw tightened. Then I'll find a way to get him back. There is no way back. There's always a way. Not for him. Clara stood, her expression hard. He made his choice, and you need to make yours. Stay and die with him, or leave and live. She walked back to the children. Lyra stayed by the door, watching the sun rise. She should leave, she knew that, but every time she thought about walking away, she saw Kael's face, heard his voice. I'm already gone. No, he wasn't gone. Not yet. And Lyra had spent her whole life seeing ghosts. She knew the difference between the dead and the dying. Kael was still in there, and she was going to bring him back, even if it killed her. By midday, Lyra had a plan. It was a terrible plan, the kind that got people killed. But it was all she had. She left the barn while the children slept, Clara watching her go with knowing eyes. You're going back, Clara said. Yes. You'll die. Maybe. Kael wouldn't want this. I don't care what he wants. Lyra met her eyes. I care what he needs. Clara's expression softened, just barely. You love him. It wasn't a question. Lyra didn't answer. She just walked. The house was different in daylight. The fog was gone. The wolves were gone. It looked almost normal, just an old abandoned mansion slowly being reclaimed by the forest. But Lyra felt the wrongness radiating from it like heat from a fire. She pushed open the front door. Inside, everything was still. The furniture was covered in dust again, the walls were peeling, and the air smelled like ash. Seraphine, Lyra called. Her voice echoed. I know you can hear me. Silence. I want to make a deal. The temperature dropped. Frost crept across the floor, up the walls, and Seraphine appeared at the top of the stairs, her form flickering. A deal, she repeated. How quaint. You let Kael go. I'll stay in his place. Seraphine tilted her head. Why would I do that? Because you want someone to stay with you, someone to keep you company. I can do that. You're not him. No, but I can see you, I can hear you, and I'm not going anywhere. Seraphine descended the stairs, her movements too smooth, too graceful. She circled Lyra like a predator. You're lying, she said. I'm not. Yes, you are. Seraphine leaned in close, her breath cold against Lyra's ear. You think you can trick me, save him, be the hero. I think, Lyra said carefully, that you're lonely and tired, and you don't want to be alone anymore. Seraphine froze. I think you loved him, Lyra continued, really loved him. And when he chose the children, it broke something inside you, something you can't fix. Stop. But staying here tormenting him, it's not bringing him back, it's just destroying you both. I said stop. Let him go, Seraphine. Let yourself go. It's the only way this ends. Seraphine's form flickered violently. And then she screamed. The sound shattered every window in the house. The walls cracked. The floor buckled. And Lyra was thrown backward, slamming into the wall hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. When she looked up, Seraphine stood over her. Her face was no longer beautiful. It was a skull, charred and broken. Her eyes were empty sockets, and when she spoke, her voice was the crackle of flames. You want to save him? She hissed. Fine. Let's see how much you're willing to sacrifice. She grabbed Lyra by the throat and dragged her toward the east wing, toward the room where she died. Lyra struggled, her hands clawing at Seraphine's wrist, but it was like trying to fight smoke. The door to the east wing exploded open. Inside, the room was exactly as it had been the night of the fire. Flames licked the walls, ghost flames, blue and freezing. The bed was engulfed, the floor was black with char, and in the center of it all, chained to the bedpost, was Kael. His head hung low, his wrists were raw where the chains bit into them, and his eyes, when he looked up and saw Lyra, filled with something that looked like despair. No, he whispered. Lyra, no. Seraphine threw Lyra to the floor. You wanted to save him? She said. Prove it. She snapped her fingers. The chains around Kael's wrists glowed red-hot. He gasped, his body jerking. "Choose," Seraphine said to Lyra. "His pain or yours?" Lyra stared at her. "What?" "I'll let one of you go free. The other stays forever." Seraphine smiled. "So choose. Who burns?" Lyra's pulse thundered. This was it. The trap. The thing Seraphine had been building toward since the moment Lyra walked through the gate. There was no right answer. If Lyra chose herself, Kael would be free, but he'd carry the guilt of her sacrifice for the rest of his life. It would destroy him. If she chose Kael, she'd be trapped here, alone, with a ghost who hated her. Either way, Seraphine won. Lyra looked at Kael. His eyes were pleading, begging her to choose herself. She looked at Seraphine, and she smiled. "No?" Seraphine's expression faltered. "What?" "I said no." Lyra stood, her legs shaking but her voice steady. "I'm not playing your game. You don't have a choice." "Yes, I do." Lyra stepped closer. "You want me to choose who suffers, but I won't, because the only person who needs to let go here is you. This isn't about me. It's always been about you." Lyra's voice hardened. "You're the one who can't move on. You're the one who's clinging to something that's already gone, and until you accept that, you'll never be free." "I don't want to be free," Seraphine said. "I want him." "Then you'll never have him." The words hung in the air. Seraphine's form flickered. The flames around the room dimmed, and for the first time, Lyra saw the truth. Seraphine wasn't powerful. She was broken. "You can't force him to love you," Lyra said quietly. "Love doesn't work that way." "He did love me," Seraphine whispered. "Once. I know. And then he didn't. I know." Tears, real tears, streaked down Seraphine's charred face. "Why wasn't I enough?" Lyra's throat tightened. She didn't have an answer, because the truth was, sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes people made choices that broke you. And sometimes, no matter how hard you held on, they still slipped away. "I'm sorry," Lyra said, and she meant it. Seraphine stared at her, then she looked at Kael. "Tell me," she said, her voice breaking. "Tell me you loved me, just once, please." Kael met her eyes. "I loved you," he said. "I loved you so much it scared me. And when I lost you, I thought I'd die too." Seraphine's breath hitched. "But I didn't die," Kael continued. "And you did. And I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. But I can't keep paying for it. Not anymore." The chains around his wrists shattered. Seraphine gasped. The flames went out, and the house, the cursed, broken house, began to crumble. Not physically, but the weight of it, the grief, the rot. It all started to lift. Seraphine looked down at her hands. They were fading. "No," she whispered. "No, please." "It's time," Kael said gently. "I don't want to go." "I know. I'm scared." "I know." He stood, crossing to her. He reached out, his hand hovering over hers. "But you have to," he said. Seraphine looked at him, and for a moment she was herself again. Not the monster, not the ghost, just a woman who'd loved too hard and lost too much. "Will you remember me?" she asked. "Always." She smiled. And then she was gone. The room collapsed. Kael grabbed Lyra and ran. They burst through the door just as the east wing caved in, dust and debris exploding outward. They didn't stop. They ran through the house, down the stairs, out the front door. And when they finally stopped, gasping for air in the middle of the drive, Lyra turned back. The mansion stood, but it was different. The windows were clear, the vines were gone, and the oppressive weight, the thing that had clung to the place like a shroud, was. The mansion stood, but it was different. The windows were clear, the vines were gone, and the oppressive weight, the thing that had clung to the place like a shroud, was lifted. For 3 seconds, Lyra thought it was over. Then the ground beneath them trembled. Kael's head snapped up. "No." "What?" "She's not gone." His voice was raw. "She's just changing." The earth split, not a crack. A chasm. It tore through the drive, through the lawn, circling the house like a noose, and from the depths rose something that made Lyra's blood freeze. Wolves, hundreds of them. But these weren't the pack that had circled the house before. These were dead. Skeletal. Their bones held together by shadow and smoke. Their eye sockets burned with that same unnatural blue fire. And leading them was the black wolf from the first night. Massive, its fur matted with decay, its jaws dripping with something dark. Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. Run! Where? The barn. Get to the children. What about you? I'll hold them off. Like hell you will. Lyra pulled free, her eyes blazing. We do this together or not at all? Kael's jaw clenched. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. The wolves started moving, slow at first. A predatory crawl that made every hair on Lyra's body stand up. Then they charged. Kael shifted. 1 second he was a man. The next he was a wolf. Bigger than the dead ones. His fur dark gray shot through with silver. His eyes that same winter steel. He lunged forward, meeting the first wave head on. Lyra ran, not away, toward the house. She didn't know what she was looking for, just that somewhere in that cursed building was the answer, the thing that would end this. She crashed through the front door. Inside, the house was collapsing in earnest now. The main staircase groaned, its banister cracking. Plaster rained from the ceiling, and from somewhere deep below she heard it, singing. Seraphine's voice, soft, broken, beautiful. Lyra followed it, down the main hall, through the sitting room, to the cellar door she'd used to break in. It stood open. The singing grew louder. Lyra descended the stairs, her pulse hammering. The skeletons were gone. No, not gone. Moving. Their bones scraped against the dirt floor, dragging themselves toward the far wall where a door had appeared. Old wood, iron hinges, and carved into it was a single word in a language Lyra didn't recognize. The door swung open. Beyond it was a chamber Lyra hadn't seen before. Stone walls, a dirt floor. And in the center, a circle burned into the earth, runes and symbols that glowed with that same ghostly blue. Inside the circle knelt Seraphine. She looked different now, not charred, not monstrous, just tired. Her dress hung in tatters. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, and her eyes, when they met Lyra's, were human again. You shouldn't be here, Seraphine said. Neither should you. Seraphine laughed softly. I don't have a choice. This is where it started. This is where he bound me. Lyra's stomach dropped. Kael did this? No. Seraphine shook her head. I did. The night I died, I made a pact. With the land. With the house. With something older than both. I told it if Kael tried to leave, it should bring him back. If he tried to forget me, it should make him remember. And if he tried to love someone else, you'd destroy them, Lyra finished. Yes, that's insane. It's love. Seraphine's voice cracked. Or it was. I don't remember anymore. It's been so long since I felt anything but rage. Lyra stepped closer to the circle. The air around it shimmered with heat, despite the cold radiating from Seraphine. How do I break it? Lyra asked. You can't. There's always a way. Not this time. Seraphine looked down at her hands. They were fading again, becoming translucent. The pact was sealed with my death. The only way to break it is for me to let go. And I can't. Why not? Because if I let go, I disappear. Completely. No afterlife, no peace. Just nothing. Lyra's throat tightened. You're scared. Terrified. Then let me help you. Seraphine looked up, her eyes wet. How? Tell me what you need. Above them, the house shook. Kael's howl cut through the air, followed by the snarls of a dozen dead wolves. He was fighting alone, outnumbered, dying. Seraphine heard it too. Her expression twisted. He's going to get himself killed. Then help me stop this. I told you. I don't care what you told me. Lyra dropped to her knees in front of the circle, her eyes locked on Seraphine's. You loved him. I know you did. And maybe that love turned into something ugly, but it was real once. And if any part of that woman is still in there, she wouldn't want him to die like this. Seraphine's breath hitched. Please, Lyra whispered, help me save him. For a long moment, Seraphine didn't move. Then she reached out, her hand stopping just at the edge of the circle. You'll have to break the seal. How? Blood. Freely given. Yours or his. Lyra didn't hesitate. She pulled a shard of broken glass from her pocket. She'd grabbed it from the shattered window without thinking and dragged it across her palm. Pain flared. Blood welled up, dark and hot. She pressed her hand to the circle. The runes flared white. The ground bucked. The walls screamed, and Seraphine gasped as the circle shattered, the light exploding outward. When Lyra's vision cleared, Seraphine stood outside the circle. Solid. Real. And mortal. What did you do? Seraphine whispered. Freed you, Lyra said. Now move. She grabbed Seraphine's wrist and hauled her up the stairs. Outside, the battle was chaos. Kale fought in the center of the drive, blood matting his fur, his movement slowing. The dead wolves circled him, snapping at his legs, his throat. He was fast, brutal, but there were too many. Lyra ran toward him. Kyle! He turned, his eyes widening. One of the dead wolves lunged. Kale twisted, but he was a second too slow. Teeth sank into his shoulder. He yelped, going down hard. Lyra screamed, and Seraphine moved. She stepped between Kale and the wolves, her hands raised. Stop, she commanded. The wolves froze. Every single one of them. Seraphine's voice rang out, clear and strong. I release you, all of you. The pact is broken. You owe me nothing. The wolves stared at her. Then one by one they began to crumble. The bones dissolved into ash, the shadows dispersed, and within seconds the drive was empty. Silent. Seraphine swayed. Lyra caught her before she fell. I'm tired, Seraphine whispered. I know. It's time, isn't it? Yes. Seraphine looked at Kyle. He'd shifted back to human, his shoulder bleeding, his face pale, but he was alive. I'm sorry, Seraphine said. Kale's expression softened. I know. For everything. I know. She smiled. It was small and sad and utterly exhausted. Thank you, she said to Lyra. Then her form began to glow. Not with fire, with light. Soft, warm. And she faded. Not into smoke, not into shadow. Into peace. The house sighed, and then it collapsed. Not violently. Gently, like it had been holding itself together for years, and finally let go. The walls crumbled, the roof caved, and by the time the dust settled, all that remained was rubble and memory. Lyra knelt beside Kyle, her hands shaking as she pressed them to his shoulder. The wound was deep, too deep. You need a hospital, she said. I'll heal. Kyle, I'll heal. His hand covered hers. We heal fast. It's part of the package. You're bleeding everywhere. I've had worse. Lyra laughed despite herself. It came out broken, almost a sob. Kale's other hand cupped her face. You're insane. You're welcome. I didn't thank you. You should. He smiled. It was real this time. Tired and battered, but real. Thank you, he said. Before Lyra could respond, voices called out from the tree line. Clara emerged first, Matthias and Elise behind her. They stopped at the edge of the rubble, staring. Is she gone? Clara asked. Kale nodded. For good? For good. Clara's shoulders sagged. She looked younger suddenly, like a weight she'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. What now? She asked. Kale looked at the ruins, at the children, at Lara. Now, he said slowly, we rebuild. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Kale's shoulder healed faster than Lyra expected. By the second day, the wound had closed to an angry red scar. By the third, even that was fading. They camped in the barn while they figured out what came next. The children were different now, lighter. Matthias spoke for the first time, just a few words, asking for water. But it was enough to make Clara cry. Elise stopped clutching her rabbit quite so tightly, and Clara smiled. Actually smiled. Lyra spent most of her time cleaning up the barn, making it livable. Kale worked outside, salvaging what he could from the rubble. Furniture, books, a few photographs that had survived. On the fourth day, he found Lyra sitting on the barn's front step, staring at the ruins. Second guessing? He asked. Always. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You could still leave, he said. I know. The bus station's only 10 miles. I could drive you. I know. So why haven't you? Lyra looked at him. Do you want me to? Kyle's jaw worked. No. Then stop asking. It's not that simple. It is. Lyra turned to face him fully. You keep waiting for me to wake up and realize what a mess this is. But I already know. I've known since the first night. Then why? Because I choose this. Her voice was steady, certain. I choose you, the kids. This broken, cursed piece of land, all of it. Kyle stared at her. You deserve better, maybe, but I want this. Why? Lyra smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Kale's expression cracked. He leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. You're going to regret it, he whispered. Probably. I'm not easy to live with. I noticed. And the pack. When they find out I'm still alive, they're going to come, and they're not going to be happy. Lyra pulled back, her eyes narrowing. What pack? Kale's jaw tightened. The one I left. When I took the children. You stole them. I saved them. From what? A pack that believes weakness is a death sentence. His voice was flat, hard. Claire's parents were killed for being too old. Matthias was going to be cold because he couldn't shift. And Elise... He stopped. Lyra's stomach twisted. What about Elise? She's an Omega. In our world, that means she's worthless. Property. They were going to use her as a bargaining chip. Marry her off to another pack when she turned 16. Lyra's hands curled into fists. She's 6. They don't care. So you took them. So I took them. And Seraphine helped me. For a while. Until she found out they weren't hers. That I'd been lying to her for years. He looked away. She wanted children. Couldn't have them. And I let her believe these were ours. When she found out the truth, it broke her. That's why she wanted to kill them. That's why I killed her first. The words hung between them. Lyra exhaled slowly. The pack. How long until they find you? I don't know. Weeks, months. But they will find me. And when they do, we'll deal with it, Lyra said. This isn't your fight. It is now. Kale looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. You mean that? He said. Every word. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, like he'd been holding back for days and finally couldn't anymore. Lyra kissed him back just as hard, her hands fisting in his shirt. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Inside, Kale said, his voice rough, the kids are asleep. Kyle, he stood, pulling her with him. Inside. Now. Lyra didn't argue. They barely made it through the barn door before Kale had her against the wall, his mouth on her throat, her collarbone, her jaw. His hands were everywhere, her waist, her hips, tangling in her hair. Lyra gasped, her head falling back. Kyle, tell me to stop, he said against her skin. No? Lyra, don't stop, he growled. The sound was low, feral, and it sent a shiver down her spine. They moved to the back room, the one Kyle had claimed as his. The door barely closed before they were on each other again. Clothes hit the floor, skin met skin, and for the first time in 5 years, Kyle let himself feel something other than guilt. Lyra woke to shouting. She bolted upright, her heart racing. Kale was already moving, pulling on his jeans, his expression dark. What is it? Lyra asked. They're here. Who? The barn door exploded inward. 3 wolves stood in the opening, all of them massive, all of them radiating violence. Behind them stood a woman. She was tall, sharp-featured. Her hair was black as oil, her eyes amber. And when she smiled, it was all teeth. Hello, Kyle, she said. Kyle's whole body tensed. Mara. Miss me? Not even a little. Mara laughed. She stepped into the barn, the wolves flanking her. Her eyes swept the room, landing on Lyra. And who's this? She asked. None of your business, Kael said. Oh, I think she is. Mara's smile widened, especially since she's wearing your scent like a claim. Lyra's stomach dropped. Kael stepped between them. Leave her out of this. Can't do that. Mara tilted her head. See, you broke pack law when you stole our property, and now you've gone and started a new pack without permission. That's 2 death sentences, Kael. Maybe 3 if I'm feeling generous. The children aren't property. They're pack. That makes them mine. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. The wolves growled in unison. Kael's eyes flashed. You want to fight? Fine. But it's just you and me. Leave them out of it. Mara considered. Tempting, but no. I think I'll take the children. And your little human. And you... She stepped closer. You'll watch me tear them apart before I kill you. Kael's hands curled into fists. You won't touch them. Try and stop me. She moved, fast. Kael shifted mid-step, meeting her head-on. They collided in a tangle of fur and teeth, crashing through the barn wall. The other wolves lunged. Lyra grabbed a pitchfork from the wall and swung. It caught the first wolf in the shoulder. The creature yelped, stumbling back. The second wolf circled her, its eyes glowing. Then Clara was there. She shifted, her form smaller than Kael's, but fast. She hit the wolf from the side, knocking it off balance. Get the kids, Clara shouted. Lyra ran. Matthias and Elise were huddled in the back corner, terror written across their faces. Come on, Lyra said, reaching for them. Matthias grabbed Elise and ran, but the third wolf was faster. It cut them off, its jaws snapping inches from Elise's face. Lyra threw herself between them, the pitchfork raised. The wolf lunged. Lyra drove the pitchfork forward with everything she had. It sank into the wolf's chest. The creature howled, thrashing. Lyra held on, her muscles screaming, until the wolf finally went still. She yanked the pitchfork free, blood dripping from the tines. Matthias stared at her. Go, Lyra said. Now! They ran. Outside, Kael and Mara were still fighting. Blood matted both their coats. Kael was bigger, but Mara was faster. She darted in, her teeth finding his flank, his leg, his throat. Kael was losing. Lyra looked around desperately. Her eyes landed on the ruins of the house, and she remembered. The cellar, the circle, the pact Seraphine had made. It had bound her to the land, which meant the land still had power. Lyra ran to the ruins, dropping to her knees in the dirt. She pressed her still bleeding palm to the ground. I don't know if you can hear me, she said, but if you can, if there's anything left, help him. Please. The ground trembled. Mara paused, her ears flicking back. Then the earth erupted. Vines, thick as Lyra's arm, burst from the soil, wrapping around Mara's legs, her body. She snarled, thrashing, but they held. Kael shifted back to human, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. Yield, he said. Mara's eyes burned. Never. Then die. The vines tightened. Mara screamed, and then she shifted back, gasping. Wait. Wait. Kael stopped. I yield, Mara said through gritted teeth. Swear it. I swear you win. Just get these off me. Kael looked at Lyra. Lyra pressed her hand to the ground again. Let her go. The vines receded. Mara collapsed, coughing. When she looked up, her expression was pure venom. This isn't over, she said. Yes, Kael said quietly. It is. You lost. Pack law says I take your place. Mara's eyes widened. You can't. I can, and I am. Kael stepped closer, his voice dropping. You're out. I'm alpha now, and the first thing I'm doing is changing the rules. No more culling, no more treating people like property, and anyone who doesn't like it can leave. Mara's jaw worked. They'll never follow you. Then they can follow you into exile. For a long moment, Mara stared at him. Then she stood limping toward the tree line. This isn't over, she repeated. But she didn't look back. Kael waited until she was gone before his legs gave out. Lyra caught him before he hit the ground. I've got you, she said. Kael's eyes were already closing. I know. And then he was. And then he was out. Lyra lowered him to the ground as gently as she could, her hands shaking. Blood soaked through his jeans, his chest, spreading across the dirt beneath him. Too much blood. Kael. She pressed her hands to the worst wound, a gash across his ribs where Mara's teeth had torn deep. Kael, stay with me. His eyes flickered open, unfocused. Kids? Safe. They're safe. Good. His hand found hers, slick with blood. That's good. You're not dying on me, Lyra said. Her voice cracked. You hear me? After everything we just went through, you don't get to die. Kael's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Bossy. Damn right I am. Clara appeared beside them, her face pale. She'd shifted back, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Behind her, Matthias held Elise, both of them silent. How bad? Clara asked. Lyra didn't answer. Couldn't. Clara knelt, her hands moving over Kael's wounds with practiced efficiency. He needs a healer, a real one. Where? There's one. 2 hours north. But he won't make it that long. Not bleeding like this. Lyra's chest tightened. Then what do we do? Clara met her eyes. You let me try. You're 12. I'm Pack. Clara's jaw set. And Pack takes care of Pack. Before Lyra could argue, Clara placed her hands over Kael's ribs. She closed her eyes, her breathing slowing, and then light. It wasn't bright. More like warmth made visible, spreading from Clara's palms into Kael's skin. The bleeding slowed. The wounds began to close, knitting together inch by inch. Lyra watched, her throat tight. After what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, Clara pulled back. She swayed, exhausted, but Matthias caught her. That's all I can do, Clara said. The rest is up to him. Kael's breathing evened out. His color was still bad, but he was stable, alive. Lyra exhaled, her whole body sagging. Thank you, she whispered. Clara nodded, already half asleep against Matthias. Lyra stayed beside Kael, her hand wrapped around his, watching his chest rise and fall. Around them, the barn settled back into silence. The bodies of the dead wolves had already started to decay, turning to ash and bone. By sunrise, there would be nothing left but memory. Kael woke 3 days later. Lyra had barely left his side. She'd cleaned his wounds, changed the makeshift bandages, forced water between his lips when he was lucid enough to swallow. The kids brought her food she didn't eat and blankets she didn't use. When his eyes finally opened, clear and focused, she almost cried. Hey, he said. His voice was rough, barely there. Hey, yourself. He tried to sit up. Lyra pushed him back down. Don't even think about it, she said. How long? 3 days. Kael's eyes widened. The pack scattered. The ones who were loyal to Mara left with her. The others... Lyra hesitated. They're waiting. For what? For you to tell them what happens next. Kael stared at the ceiling. I'm not an alpha. You challenged Mara and won. That makes you alpha. It makes me a target. Maybe. But you're still breathing. That's more than she can say. Kael turned his head to look at her. Really look at her. His eyes swept over her face, her hands, the exhaustion written into every line of her body. You stayed, he said quietly. Of course I stayed. Why? Lyra's jaw tightened. You keep asking me that like you're waiting for me to realize I made a mistake. But I didn't. I chose this. I chose you. And nothing that's happened, nothing that's going to happen, is going to change that. Kael's throat worked. You don't know what you're signing up for. Then tell me. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Being alpha means every decision is life or death. Every mistake costs someone. And there will be mistakes, Lyra. I'm not good at this. At leading. At being the thing people look to when everything falls apart. You saved those kids. I stole them. You saved them, Lyra repeated, harder this time. And then you protected them. For years. Against a ghost who wanted them dead and a pack who saw them as property. That's what an alpha does. An alpha doesn't hesitate. An alpha who never hesitates is a tyrant. Lyra leaned closer. You're not perfect, Kael. You're broken and scarred, and you've made terrible choices. But you're also brave. and loyal. And you care so much it scares you. That's the kind of alpha people will follow. Kael's eyes searched hers. You really believe that? Every word. He reached up, his hand cupping her face. His thumb brushed her cheek, and Lyra realized she was crying. I don't deserve you, he said. Probably not. But I'm keeping you anyway. Lyra laughed through her tears. Good. Kael pulled her down, kissing her. It was soft this time. Gentle. Like he was afraid she might break. When they pulled apart, Lyra rested her forehead against his. We're going to be okay, she whispered. Yeah, Kael said. We are. It took another week before Kael was strong enough to stand. By then, the pack had started to gather. They came in ones and twos at first. Wolves who'd been scattered when Mara took over. Families who'd left rather than watch their children cold. Outcasts who had nowhere else to go. They set up camp in the clearing where the mansion used to stand. Makeshift tents, fires that burned through the night. And every evening, they looked to Kael. He met with them in the barn, sitting at the old table Clara had salvaged from the rubble. Lyra sat beside him, her presence a silent support. The first few meetings were tense. Why should we follow you? One of them asked. A man, maybe 40, with scars crossing his face. You left us, abandoned the pack. I left because the pack was broken, Kael said, and I wasn't strong enough to fix it. And now? Now I am, the man snorted. Big words from someone who got his ass handed to him by Mara. I beat Mara, Kael said evenly. She's alive because I let her live. Don't mistake mercy for weakness. The man's eyes narrowed, but he didn't argue. A woman spoke up. What about the children? The ones you took? Do they stay? They stay, Kael said, and anyone who has a problem with that can leave. They're not pack. They are now. Murmurs rippled through the room. And what about her? The woman's gaze cut to Lyra. She's human. She's mine, Kael said. His voice dropped, dangerous. And anyone who touches her answers to me. The room went silent. Lyra felt the weight of every eye on her, some curious, some hostile, but none willing to challenge Kael. Not yet. The meetings went on for days, establishing rules, deciding who stayed and who left, rebuilding what Mara had destroyed, and slowly the pack began to take shape. A month after the fight, Lyra stood in the clearing at dawn, watching the sun rise over the remains of the mansion. They'd cleared most of the rubble, salvaged what they could, and in its place, something new was beginning to grow. Not a house, a home. The pack had built cabins in the woods, small structures, rough but sturdy, enough for families to have their own space. And in the center of it all, they were building a hall, a place for meetings, meals, gatherings. It was loud, chaotic, full of arguments and laughter and life. It was perfect. Kael came up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder. Second guessing yet? He asked. Lyra smiled. Not even a little. Liar. Okay, maybe a little, but only when you snore. Kael laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. I don't snore. You absolutely do. Clara's a bad influence on you. Clara's honest. There's a difference. They stood there in silence, watching the pack move through the clearing. Kids chasing each other, adults working on the hall, wolves running patrol along the tree line. It's really happening, Lyra said quietly. Yeah, it is. You scared? Kael's arms tightened around her. Terrified. Good. Me too. He turned her in his arms, his eyes searching hers. I need to ask you something. Okay? Stay. Lyra frowned. I am staying. No, I mean... He took a breath. Stay. Permanently. As my mate. As part of this pack. As everything. Lyra's heart stuttered. Kael, I know it's fast, and I know it's insane, but I also know I don't want to do this without you. Any of it. His hands cupped her face. You make me want to be better. To be the man the pack needs, the man you deserve. And I... He stopped, his jaw working. I love you, he said. The words came out rough. like they'd been locked inside him for years. I don't know when it happened. Maybe the first night when you refused to run. Maybe when you walked into fire for me. But it's true, and I need you to know. Lyra's eyes burned. She'd spent her whole life seeing ghosts, watching people cling to the past, unable to let go. And she'd promised herself she'd never be one of them. Never let herself get so tangled up in someone that losing them would destroy her. But standing here, in Kael's arms, she realized something. Loving him wasn't losing herself. It was finding herself. I love you too, she said. Kael's expression broke. Relief, joy, something so raw it made her chest ache. He kissed her, and this time it felt like a promise. Mashen. The pack gathered that night for a bonfire. It wasn't formal, just a celebration, a chance to breathe after weeks of rebuilding. Someone had brought a guitar. Music filled the air, rough and unpolished, but real. Kids danced around the fire. Adults passed around food and stories. And for the first time since Lyra had arrived, the clearing felt whole. Clara found her near the edge of the circle, a cup of something that smelled suspiciously like alcohol in her hand. You're not supposed to have that, Lyra said. Clara shrugged. I'm not supposed to heal people either. Guess I'm a rule breaker. Lyra laughed. They sat together watching the fire. Thank you, Clara said after a while. Lyra looked at her. For what? For not leaving. When things got bad. When Kael pushed you away. When Seraphine... She stopped, swallowing hard. You could have run. Most people do. But you stayed. And because of that, we're here. Lyra's throat tightened. I didn't do it alone. No, but you did it first. Clara met her eyes. That matters. Before Lyra could respond, Matthias appeared, Elise on his shoulders. Elise was laughing, her rabbit tucked under one arm. Dance with us, Matthias said. His voice was still quiet, but there was a lightness to it now that hadn't been there before. Clara stood, pulling Lyra with her. They joined the circle around the fire, hands clasped, moving to the rhythm of the music. Lyra didn't know the steps, didn't know the songs, but it didn't matter. She was home. Later, when the fire had burned low and most of the pack had drifted back to their cabins, Kael found Lyra sitting on the steps of the hall. He sat beside her, their shoulders touching. What are you thinking about? He asked. Everything. Nothing. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder. How different my life would be if that bus hadn't broken down. Regret it? Not even a little. Kael's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together. They sat in silence, watching the stars. After a while, Lyra said, What happened to your ability to see ghosts? Kael looked at her. What? You said Seraphine was in your head, that you could hear her, see her, but you're not a medium. So how? The bond, Kael said. When I made the pact with her, when I promised to stay, it tied us together. I could feel what she felt, see what she saw. It's how she controlled me for so long. And now? Now it's gone. He exhaled slowly. When she let go, the bond broke. I'm free. Lyra's chest tightened. How does it feel? Empty, Kael admitted. I spent 5 years hearing her voice, feeling her presence, and now there's just silence. Is that a good thing? Yeah, I think it is. He looked at her. For the first time in years, the only voice in my head is mine, and the only person I want to be tied to is you. Lyra smiled. Careful. That sounds like a commitment. It is. You sure you're ready for that? Kael's eyes softened. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He stood, pulling her with him. Come on, he said. Where are we going? You'll see. He led her away from the hall into the woods. They walked in silence, the moon lighting their path. After a few minutes, they emerged into a small clearing Lyra hadn't seen before. In the center was a tree. Not just any tree. Ancient, massive. Its trunk was as wide as a car, its branches spreading out like arms reaching for the sky. And carved into the bark, just above eye level, were symbols. Runes. What is this? Lyra asked. The heart of the pack, Kael said. Every alpha brings their mate here. It's where bonds are sealed. Lyra's pulse kicked up. Kael, I'm not asking you to decide tonight, he said quickly. I just wanted you to see it, to know that when you're ready, if you're ready, this is where we'll stand. Lyra stepped closer to the tree, her fingers tracing the symbols. They were warm under her touch, alive. What happens if I say yes? She asked. We carve our names into the tree. We make a vow. And from that moment on, we're bound. Not like Seraphine and I were. No magic, no control, just connection. You'll feel what I feel. I'll feel what you feel. And nothing short of death will break it. Lyra turned to look at him. And if I say no, then nothing changes. You're still mine. I'm still yours. The bond just won't be official. But it matters to the pack. Yes. Lyra looked back at the tree. A month ago, the idea of being tied to someone so completely would have terrified her. But now it felt right. Okay, she said. Kyle blinked. Okay? Okay. Lyra turned to face him fully. I want this. I want you. All of it. Kale's expression shifted. Hope, disbelief, joy. You mean that? Every word. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands cupping her face. You're insane. You keep saying that. Because it's true, Lyra smiled. Then I guess we're perfect for each other. Kale kissed her, and when he pulled back, he took her hand and led her to the tree. He pulled a knife from his belt, small, the blade worn but sharp, and handed it to her. You first, he said. Lyra's hand shook as she pressed the blade to the bark. She carved slowly, carefully. Her name, then his. When she finished, Kyle took the knife and carved a symbol around their names. A circle, unbroken. Then he cut his palm, pressing it to the tree. I vow to protect you, he said. His voice was steady, certain. To stand beside you, to choose you, every day, for as long as I live. He stepped back. Lyra cut her own palm, wincing at the sting. She pressed it beside his, their blood mixing. I vow to stay, she said, to fight with you, to love you, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The tree pulsed. Light spread from their hands, racing up the trunk, into the branches. It wasn't blinding, just warm, like the sun breaking through clouds. And then it was done. Lyra pulled her hand back, staring at her palm. The cut was already healing, leaving behind a faint scar in the shape of the circle Kyle had carved. Is that the bond? Kyle said. He held up his own hand, showing the matching mark. We're connected now. Lyra looked at him, and she felt it. Not his thoughts, not his words, just him. His presence, his heartbeat syncing with hers. It was overwhelming, and it was perfect. Kale pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For choosing me. Lyra's eyes burned. Always. They stood there under the tree, wrapped in each other, as the night settled around them. And for the first time in either of their lives, the silence wasn't empty. It was full. Montek. 6 months later, the pack had tripled in size. Word spread. About the new alpha. About the rules he'd set. About the pack that didn't cull its weak or treat its children like property. Wolves came from all over. Some stayed, some left. But slowly, steadily, the pack grew. The hall was finished. So were most of the cabins. And in the center of the clearing, where the mansion used to stand, they'd planted a garden. Flowers and herbs and vegetables. A reminder that even ruins could grow something beautiful. Lyra spent her days helping wherever she was needed, teaching the younger kids to read, organizing supplies, mediating disputes when tempers flared, and every night she came home to Kyle. They'd built their own cabin at the edge of the clearing, small but sturdy, with a porch where they could sit and watch the stars. It wasn't perfect. There were still fights, still tensions, still nights when Kyle woke up gasping, his hand reaching for hers like he needed to make sure she was real. But it was theirs, and that was enough. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Clara appeared with Matthias and Elise in tow. We need to talk, Clara said. Kale raised an eyebrow. That sounds ominous. It's not. Maybe. I don't know. Clara sat down, the other two following. We've been thinking about the future, about what happens when we're older. Okay, Lyra said slowly. We want to stay, Matthias said. His voice was stronger now, confident. With the pack, with you. But we also want to do something, build something. Like what? Kael asked. A school, Elise said. She was 8 now, her rabbit long retired to a shelf in her room. For kids like us, who don't have families or packs, so they have somewhere safe to go. Kael and Lyra exchanged a glance. That's a big project, Kael said. We know, Clara said. But we've been talking to some of the other families, and they want to help. We just need your permission. Kael looked at Lyra. She smiled. I think it's a great idea. Kael turned back to the kids. Then you have my permission and my support. Clara's face lit up. Really? Really? She threw her arms around him. Matthias and Elise followed, piling on. Kael laughed, his arms wrapping around all 3 of them. Lyra watched, her chest tight with something she couldn't name. Love, pride, hope, all of it. When the kids finally left, still buzzing with excitement, Kael pulled Lyra into his lap. You okay? He asked. More than okay. You sure? You got that look. What look? The one where you're thinking too much. Lyra smiled. I'm just happy. And it scares me a little. Why? Because I'm not used to it. My whole life I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for things to fall apart. And now, she looked at him. Now I have everything I didn't know I wanted, and I'm terrified of losing it. Kael's hand cupped her face. You won't. You can't promise that. No. But I can promise I'll fight like hell to keep it, to keep you, to keep all of this. His eyes searched hers. We've been through fire, Lyra. Literal and metaphorical, and we're still standing. That has to count for something. Lyra's throat tightened. It does. Then stop waiting for the other shoe to drop, and just be here, with me. Lyra leaned her forehead against his. I'm here. Good. They sat in silence, the sounds of the pack settling around them. Laughter from the hall, music from someone's cabin, the howl of a wolf running patrol. It was home. And for the first time in Lyra's life, she believed it would last. Imkag. A year after the fight with Mara, Lyra stood in the clearing at dawn, watching the sun rise. The garden was in full bloom. The cabins were weathered but sturdy, and the school Clara and the others had built was nearly finished, a simple structure, but full of light and promise. Kael came up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. Morning, he murmured against her neck. Morning. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. He turned her to face him, his brow furrowed. Nightmares? No. Lyra smiled, just thinking. About? About how far we've come. About where we're going. About... She hesitated. About the future. Kael's eyes narrowed. That's cryptic. Lyra took a breath. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. Kael stared at her. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. Yeah. He picked her up, spinning her around. Lyra laughed, her arms wrapping around his neck. When he finally set her down, his hands cupped her face. How long have you known? A week. I wanted to be sure before I told you. A week? He looked almost offended. You kept this from me for a week? I wanted it to be perfect. Lyra, his voice was soft, reverent. Everything with you is perfect. Her eyes burned. He kissed her, and when he pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers. We're going to be parents, he said. Yeah, we are. I have no idea what I'm doing. Neither do I. We're going to screw this up. Probably. Kael laughed. God, I love you. I love you too. They stood there as the sun climbed higher, painting the clearing in gold. And in that moment, Lyra realized something. She'd spent her whole life haunted by ghosts, by the past, by the things she couldn't change. But now, standing here with Kael, with the pack, with a future she'd never dared to imagine, She was finally free. Not because the ghosts were gone, but because she'd learned to live alongside them, to carry the past without letting it define her, to choose love even when it was terrifying, to build something beautiful from the ruins. And as Kael's hand found hers, their matching scars pressing together, Lyra knew one thing for certain. This was where she belonged, not in the life she'd planned, but in the one she'd fought for, the one she'd chosen, the one that chose her back. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything.